Wow, what a fantastic episode, Raj. Great stuff. We were talking about change or die in this episode. I asked some questions related to how do you know if you have a change mindset? How do you cultivate change in your organization? And then how do you cultivate change in yourself as the leader of an organization? And so you'll definitely want to watch this episode, and you're going to get a ton of value from it. Here you go. All right, Raj, I'm excited about the topic today, change or die. I love it, change or die. And there's this great quote from Charles Darwin. It says, "It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." So I've got a question for you as we talk about this. So everyone wants to believe, I believe that everyone wants to believe that they are open-minded, right? If you ask most people, hey, are you open-minded? They go, yeah, sure, I'm open. They want to be, right? Everybody wants to be open-minded. Everybody out there wants to be considered open-minded and open to change, maybe along those same, that's kind of the same question. But how can we test ourselves and determine if we are responsive to change? Like, what would you, have you ever been asked that question by a client, or have you ever put them through a test? I don't know.
Yes, I mean, that is most of the time, especially when I'm doing my one-on-one coaching with the CEOs or the entrepreneurs I'm working with. That's one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
And the first question I ask him is, tell me something you have done for the first time in the last 2 weeks.
That's a great question.
And when you go back and ask the question, everybody is like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Then we go back and say, are you really open to change?
Yeah.
Because everybody has the right intention. And everybody wants everybody else to change. But when it comes to personal change, they don't want it.
You know, I did something new. So Thanksgiving was last week at the time of this recording. And because you got me thinking, and I challenged, it's not really, it's me, but I challenged my, a couple of my coaching clients. We were essentially done with the session and we still had some time. I said, okay, here's what I want you to do in the remaining time. I want you to name 100 things you're grateful for.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And just on the spot. I mean, they had no preparation. I said, I'll keep count. And I just had my little calculator out, and every time I just do +1 every time they said something. And it only took about 20 minutes for each person to name 100 things. The first person was already kind of feeling down. They were just kind of having a rough patch. And afterwards, they said that changed my whole day. That is fantastic. Yeah.
Yes.
The second person was having an okay day to begin with. You know, everything was going fine, but still they did it. And they just go, I feel so much better about my life. And it's funny. I'll just, fully confess my own, I was working on my list in between the coaching sessions, and I got up in the 80s. I didn't get a full 100 written out and typed out, but doing that was a powerful experience to really get down to the nitty-gritty. And people, it's funny, they started saying things like, I'm so thankful for the trees. I'm so thankful for, the sunrises and the sunsets and birds. They're like, I don't know, birds just make me happy. My weird thing, Raj, I'll tell you, my weird thing that I'm thankful for, and then we'll get back on topic. I know I'm just kind of going off here, but the weird thing that I'm thankful for is in California, there's a lot of hills. That's where I grew up. And I lived there as an adult for about 4 years. And on the hills, if you're driving through the central part of the state, you'll see cows grazing on the side of a hill, on this, and you just think that cows have such thin ankles and the massive body, and they can hold themselves up on the side of a mountain. It's really, it boggles the mind. And so anyways, that's
mind-boggling. I agree with you on that piece of it.
People are like, okay, I'm about to tune out. We better get back to business. So doing something new. I love that. When did you do something new in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Have you done something new in the last 2 weeks?
Exactly. That is the first piece of it.
Wow.
And the second piece of it, I always ask my CEOs is, tell me what was bothering you something for the last 12 months. And then everybody has something.
Yeah.
Then I said, what did you do about it? And they're stuck. If you were really willing to change in 12 months, it was a problem.
Yeah.
You have identified it, but you have not done anything else. Yeah. So either something is blocking you from changing, or you're so comfortable in your comfort zone that you're expecting that to move away from.
Yeah.
So you always need to go back and pick those right questions to understand that piece of it.
Oh, that is powerful.
Because
Yeah.
as a small business, as an entrepreneur, if you have a 1% shop to a 10% shop or a 50 employee company, that is one thing has to be constant.
Mhm.
If you're not changing, because like we were talking about always, the stages of growth is built on the number of employees.
Yeah.
So if the number of employees are adding and you're going to keep the same thing, it's going to be very, very difficult. I'll share one simple example from a change perspective, this thing there. So my daughter was in college
Mhm.
and I was going for a certification in one of the psychological certification exams and stuff. So basically I asked her, hey, we were living in Connecticut, winter and snow in the month of Feb. And she jumped at the chance to come for a week with me to Arizona.
Yeah.
So this was a 3-day workshop. And my general routine is I wake up at 7, do the things, 7:30 go out, whatever fast food restaurant I see, I pick up a sandwich or a coffee or something,
Mhm.
and then I just go to the place.
Yeah.
And this place, the first time, this is my own daughter, whom I have known her for 19, 20 years. She gets up and we go and stop at McDonald's. And she says, Dad, I don't eat McDonald's. Oh my God. So I had to find for the Starbucks with there. And by the time I went to the conference, I was never late for a conference or a training. This is the first time I went there 10, 12 minutes late. I said, fine. So next day, what? I'm smart, right? I directly go to Starbucks.
Yeah.
And she says, Dad, I had Starbucks yesterday. I want something else today. So the second day, again, we had to find something else. And then basically I was another 10, 15 minutes late. We didn't lose much. It was okay, but there. And now the third day I became smart enough and I asked her the night before.
Right.
I said, what is that you want? So that is the routine and the change because it is my own daughter.
Yeah.
But on a business trip, I never had my daughter with me.
Yeah.
And it was completely dynamic. And it is only one person whom I have known all my life.
Exactly. Yeah. So it gets complicated the more people you have.
Exactly.
And then also how many leaders, I mean, and don't, you're by yourself listening to this, but how many of us out there would just have done the same thing every day and not changed in that short amount of time? We would have said, we just would have woken up, not even thought about it.
Exactly.
Maybe you would have driven to McDonald's the next day and she would have said, Dad, I still don't eat here.
Exactly.
But modifying that approach, how long do we deal with these problems? Do we, or not deal with them? Do we accept these problems that are going on in our business? And we say, well, this is just the way it is. This is just how it's got to be. This is just, even, you get in certain industries, this is just my industry. And this is what happens in our industry. We just have to accept this. Maybe, but maybe not.
Exactly.
Maybe there's a way that we can question that, we can change, we can modify. And I mean, how many of us thought that if you grew up in the 90s at all, thought that we would have smartphones in our pocket? But that changed, right?
Yes.
That every single person, it's unconscionable to send for my wife or my children or anybody that I care about to go to the store without a cell phone so I can reach them.
You're right.
When we used to go on road trips across the country
And
with no cell phone.
exactly.
And if you broke down, you figured it out. But this world is changing. And so you can either stand there and be the person that says,
yes.
I refuse to get the cell phone. I'm not interested. That's a metaphor,
Yeah.
but I refuse to change with the times. Instead, I'm just going to stay here where I'm at. Well, life, business, everything's going to pass you by. Your client, your customer base is going to move past you because you're no longer meeting their needs if you don't change.
That is the most biggest important thing for any company.
Yeah.
I mean, going forward, it becomes much more faster, much more very, very important. Even what we have done in the last 100 years, the change was much slower. But what you're going to see in the next 50 years, it is going to be exponential.
Mm-hmm.
It's so critical.
Yeah.
So each one of you as an entrepreneur, just reflecting every week and saying, is there anything that I need to change from today? In fact, in the strategy planning process, what I do with a lot of my customers is I have two things. One is called SCR, strategy execution review.
Yeah.
And strategy performance review.
Okay.
So every year I take the leadership team, go back and say, last year, 12 months, you set up some goals, you had some identity stuff. Let us go back and review and say, what is the good thing that has happened? And what did you learn? Because I want that to be incorporated.
Yeah.
And then from a performance perspective, what are your goals for the next 12 months and what can go wrong?
Mhm.
So some call it strategy planning, some call it change. But for me, that is the question I'm asking people
Yeah.
so that I can go back and work with it. Somebody says, Raj, I had a fantastic year. And the first question, you know what I asked them? Give me two things, what you have done differently and what did you learn? And they go back and say, I don't know. Then I said, if you don't know, how are you going to replicate it again?
Yeah.
So you don't want it to be a chance. The change or die thinking process will really help you to bring whatever that one time, two things randomly happened, good or bad. We learn from the process and really start putting it and implementing it if it is the best way to do it.
Well, because learning from our mistakes or from our successes is the only guarantee that the next year is going to be better.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
So I want to switch gears here. These 3 top leadership qualities. This is from an article you have on your website.
Mhm.
So according to, and we'll put a link to the article in the notes.
Sure.
But according to the author Bruno Martinuzzi,
Mhm.
3 top leadership qualities will be critically important in the years ahead. The ability to motivate staff, 35%, the ability to work well across cultures, 33%, and the ability to facilitate change, 32%. The key skill required to handle all 3 of these qualities is adaptability. Adaptability is the ability to change or be changed to fit new circumstances. So here's the question I have for you, Raj. How can I, as a business owner, create a culture of adaptability? How can it, like, say I'm good and I'm adaptable as the business owner, but how can I create that culture among my broader team?
So basically, there are 2 aspects for this. One is you need to understand a little bit of stacks from the psychology world.
Okay.
Whenever change was implemented, a lot of wonderful studies have been done. At any given time, think of these numbers. There are always going to be 3% of the people, they're called innovators. So these are the people will jump. That is in their DNA, blood, whatever you want to call it. They love to change. I don't know if you remember from 2006-7 when the iPhones were new, people were putting a tent in front of Apple stores for 3 days, 4 days. Those are the 3% innovators. For them, good product, bad product, once they start believing in it, they're going to jump.
They just want to be the first one to have it too.
Yes. And then the next group, basically, we call them the early adapters. There are about 12.5, 13% of the population who are that. And this population, they ask you a lot of questions.
Okay.
And the only intention of their question is, do I really want to change?
So you're saying you're going to have, am I getting ahead of you here?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. So you're saying that there's 3% of the people in my organization. Let's just break it down. Let's say I have 100 people.
Exactly.
So we've got 3 people that they're like, I'm on it. Let's do it. Change. Heck yeah. I've been wanting to change for the last week.
Exactly.
They're excited about it.
Yes.
Then you've got another 12% that they're questioning you. They're asking a lot of questions. And sometimes I've found when I share this with leaders all the time, when you get those people that are questioning, don't be turned off by that.
Exactly.
Because that's the type of person, and I have some kids that have that style. That's the type of person that they need to understand why we're doing what we're doing.
Exactly.
So that they can fully get behind the change. Their brain just has to fully understand why. We're that 3%. They love change. They don't need to know why. They just want to change. Let's do it.
Exactly. So this 12%, and the good news is when people who are bringing the change, when these people are asking the questions, the good news is they will make you reflect and think 10 times whether you are making the right thing. So you need to be comfortable with it as well. And be
prepared for it.
Exactly. We need to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
And what happens is this 12-13% of the people, that is what you want to identify. And you're talking about how do you implement change, right? We always bring these people first.
Yeah.
The 3% are going to be there. So the other people to rally around the 3% is very difficult because they say, oh yeah, this person A, Bill. Oh yeah, Bill is always willing to change. That is who he is.
Yeah.
But this 12% or 13% of the population sets the tone for it.
Yeah.
And that is where the change happens. So anytime.
And they understand it.
Exactly. Because they ask the right questions.
They can be your voice piece out there in the rest of the organization.
Exactly. And always, whenever we have a change initiative, we always try to bring in, identify these people and get them trained and get them implemented so that we can get some early wins.
Yeah.
And then slowly people will start following them.
Yeah. Well, that's the concept of the meeting before the meeting is that, and especially if you can do that with your leaders or just people of influence in your organization. And you're going to have, and you still have two more types of people you got to talk about, right? Three more types of people. And so you need to identify these people early and do a test run with these folks, knowing that, hey, this person, Bill, Susie, they're going to question me, and that's going to be good for me. And I need that. And I'm going to tell them that I'm just considering this. So I tell leaders all the time, you don't have to say this is the new thing forever and always. You just say, I'm considering this. I want to hear your thoughts.
Exactly.
And then you're not on the hook, right?
Exactly.
You can change your mind.
And whenever in my GE days, whenever something new came, my biggest mantra is, hey, we're running a 3-month pilot.
Exactly. Yeah.
So a 3-month pilot, you don't have a lot of
and if it's a horrible idea, it works horribly, you cut it loose.
And then move on.
Yeah. Or you tweak along the way and you get it right. Or you go, oh my goodness, this is great. And everybody realizes it's great.
Exactly.
And it's just in.
So when you go back to your employees, now you look at the 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have 16 people done. 13% are early adapters, 3% are your innovators.
Yes.
Now comes 34% of your population, who we call is early majority.
Early majority. Okay.
So these are the people, they want to change, but they really don't like the change because they want to test it. It's like there are some people who buy them. Let us say Mercedes came up with a new model for 2023.
Yeah.
These are the 34 majority, the early majority, they don't want to buy because they say, you know what, there is a lot of debugging that happens for the first 6 months. Yeah. Let that kinks be taken care of. Then I would go.
I'll buy 2024 edition.
Exactly.
Or something.
Yeah. Exactly. Or I'll wait for the first 6 months when they finish off all the clinks and then I will join. Okay. So the early majority people, they're still in favor of the change.
Yeah.
But they want to be cautious and say there might be some more changes and fine tuning happens. I will join the bandwagon once the
they don't want to be the guinea pigs.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So these are the 34%. So all of these people you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Now comes the late majority. The late majority are the people, basically there are a lot of asking questions to see if I can stop change from happening. So they're not very, very pushy on not changing, but basically they're pushing and saying, can I get away with this? It's like your teenager. Can I get away with this or can I get away with this? And that is the 34% we call the late majority.
Okay.
But eventually they see that there is a momentum going on and it is really beneficial and they're seeing the initial results and everything else. They start tending to do it.
Okay.
And now.
So we were 3, 13, and 34. Then 34. So we're like 34. 50% and then add another 34?
Another 34.
Okay. So we're 84%.
84%. So all this 84% is comfortable and you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Now comes the challenge is what we call the laggards. This year, about 16% of the population in every company, every organization, what we noticed, these people don't want to change, but a few percentage of these people, they want to disrupt the change from happening. So that is the biggest group of people that can really destroy change initiatives.
Yeah.
You need to really identify who those people are and either really work with them or come up with a transition plan.
Yeah.
And that is very, very critical for people. The 84% of the people, you can work with it. You can go back and look at it. The key piece of here is the early adapters, the 13% we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you identify those people and then you run your pilots and do the first training and show some results, the early majority and late majority slowly will follow it. But these laggards are the biggest challenge for you.
So the goal is to get the wave going? So how would you roll this out? You would identify these laggards and you would try to win them over or weed them out? Is that kind of...
Generally what happens is out of the 16%, based on my own personal experience, about 6 or 7% screaming, kicking and coming, they will slowly join the bandwagon.
Okay.
But about 10% becomes the biggest challenge piece of it. I always see 10% don't fit in. And depending on the company policy, you make them individual contributors. They can, if they contribute as an individual contributor, or sometimes you need to come up with an exit strategy where they can find a better home for themselves and move on.
So you kind of turn down their influence in the organization if possible, or completely remove them.
Yes. And the other piece of it from all of this, what we're doing, right? The next one is the psychological, where I talked about people transformation. And one of the things is we use a lot of psychometric assessments, like the DISC profile, the driving forces, the acumen, and the competencies. That is one assessment I always recommend to all of my customers.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of insights about where they would fit in based on their profiles as well.
Yeah.
So any smart companies, most of my companies whom I work with, everybody use that for talent management, from recruiting perspective and everything else. And as soon as we look at it, we almost go and look at their profiles and see where they would fit in, and you can come up with a mitigation plan.
Okay.
I'll give you a simple example. I've been married for 32 years. So
Yeah.
I can talk with confidence here. So my wife is very, very slow to change.
Okay.
And anything you go back, she need time to think and reflect because of her behavior profile. And she would be what I call the late majority.
Okay. And you would be?
I was completely an early.
Yep.
Adapter. I'm very, very comfortable. I'm not the innovator.
Yeah.
I am the early adapter. I ask a lot of questions. I see where it goes, and then I go back and look at it. So that is a different piece of it. So we just finished Thanksgiving. So if you go back and look at the black deals, right? The Black Friday deals and all those things. For somebody like my wife, it becomes a little bit difficult for them to make instantaneous decisions on those things because they need to think, they need to reflect.
Yeah.
But I know that piece of it. So if there is something based on her body language and she's talking about it, I know that she needs it.
Yeah.
So I make a decision and I said, just order it.
Yeah.
For her,
we can always return it.
Exactly.
I said that so many times with my wife the other day. I said, let's just get it. We can return it.
Exactly. So those are the kind of things. So that is a very simplistic example. But because I know her profile, because I know that there is not much of a discussion or an argument. And everybody's very happy. Yeah. And so far, 99% of the time, she's very happy that we ordered it.
There you go. She's had time to think about it, adopt the change. So we're talking about change in our organization. So let's say, okay, you don't have the psychometrics. So you're working with your nephew, that just started a business, got 10 people on his team, and he's trying to consider, man, I want to roll out this change in my organization. It's going to, I can't think of an exact item to roll out. I don't know if it matters, but it's going to heavily affect half the group.
So let us say,
what do you do?
New benefits plan.
Yeah, new benefits plan. There we go.
Yeah, basically.
How do you roll that out?
So one of the biggest things for that piece of it, the benefits plan, is you look at your organization. I'll take the example of the same 100.
Yeah.
Based on your past experiences and you working with different people, you can pinpoint at least 10, 12 people. Now we are assuming that we don't have their psychometric profiles, the DISC profiles. That's fine. But if you look at the behaviors, how many people are comfortably talking about change? How many people are saying, hey, we need to do this differently. We need to do that differently. We need to change this. We need to change that. Yeah. So they're either suggesting or they're implementing things. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of who they are. So you bring that group, the 10 to 12 people, whoever you feel comfortable, bring to the group and then share the information and say, this is what we are thinking about. This is what we would like to change. And give them an opportunity to ask all the questions they can ask.
Yeah.
Remember, this group wants change.
Yeah.
So we need to tell them what is the change? Why is it important? Why are we doing it right now?
Yeah.
And how will it affect you?
Timing. We're going to talk about timing in another episode. Yeah.
So all those 3 questions has to be answered. And even if you don't tell them, the group, which are this 10 to 12% early adapters, they keep on asking those questions. So it's a great testimony for us to see if we have done the homework right.
Yeah.
And to share all of those things and make them understand. Once this group understands it, they will be the spokesperson for you.
So you're saying that a small business owner needs to have conversations regularly with their staff.
Exactly. Very, very true. So if it is the
know how much resistance I get from that? I feel like on a daily basis, it's not, sometimes it's from the perspective of it's my business. I'll make the change that I want to make. And you have that prerogative as the business owner, but they also have the option to leave the business if they don't like the decision, right?
And you know what I challenge them? You have the option of changing, and if you look at it, it can have a negative impact on your bottom line. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
So basically, you can make the decisions. But if your employees are not motivated to work with it, it's going to have a negative effect on your bottom line. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
So let us not even assume that people are going to skip. See, when people leave, it is not a problem. The biggest challenge for small businesses or medium businesses is when people don't live and they're unhappy and their productivity is only 20-30% of
the quiet quitting that they talked about. That's been around forever. Yes. That's not a new thing. Quiet quitting is not a new thing. That's been around forever in organizations. People.
So I had an HR person during my GE days. This guy quit 20 years ago. He just retired today. And my question always was why the hell did you not do something about it?
Yeah. Well, it's like the thing, we talk about in life that, someone died, 20 years ago, but it just became official, right? That whole thing.
Exactly.
Sometimes people just stop moving forward. They stop. So the change or die, it's a funny quote, kind of a play on words, and the idea that we're talking about changing, and this idea, change or die, it's a play on words that maybe you're not going to actually die, but you're going to cease to really live, and have this opportunity to continue to change yourself and get better and take advantage of new opportunities and try new things. And on that note, so we talked about, a way that you ask yourself, am I open to change? We talked about cultivating a staff with change. How do I cultivate change in myself as a leader? Maybe I'm one of those people that naturally I have a slight aversion to change. I'm a late adopter. And how can, are there some things I can do to kind of cultivate a change in myself?
So one of the biggest things I have noticed is whenever you go back and look at people, they make a lot of results, analysis, whatever you want to call it, to go back and think about it based on the actions. So let us say I have a result.
Okay.
Then I'll go back and say, hey, what actions did I take? Did the result come because of the action? When you go back and start analyzing things at an action level, you're looking at it only at a surface level.
Okay.
But your actions are coming from based on your behaviors. And where are your behaviors coming from? Based on some of your assumptions. And where is your assumption coming from? Based on your belief systems. So it is that 5-step process. You have the beliefs.
Yeah.
Based on the beliefs, you have your assumptions. Based on the assumptions comes your behaviors. Based on the behaviors are your actions. And based on the actions, you have the results. So look at it from that continuum and see where you are trying to address that. So in your past, you said, Raj, I want to change. So if you're only thinking of actions and say, hey, you know what? I need to get to my office every day at 8 o'clock, but I always get there at 8:15. That is based on action.
Mm-hmm.
So a typical example in one of the customer companies is the HR manager gets really upset with one of the employee because the time is reporting to work at 9 o'clock. And this person is always 9:10, 9:15, 9:20, 9:30.
Yeah.
And they give a lot of warnings. The person did not change.
Oh, there's traffic. And there's,
exactly.
My laundry wasn't dry, whatever.
And then one day I went back and I was in the office. So I said, let me get into the next level of detail.
Yeah.
And we started analyzing and peeling the onion. The biggest part of it was, Raj, the office closes at 6, but I never reach home until 7 or 8. I work every day late, so I'm entitled to come 15 minutes. That was his.
That was the argument.
System. Exactly.
Yeah.
So he never spoke about that, but that was his thing. When basically I'm spending 2 hours extra in the evening and I'm not getting compensated for it, coming 15 minutes is not an issue.
Yeah.
And the second thing for him was he was very, very particular because his wife goes to work at 7 and the school bus, he has to drop off his son to put on the school bus before he can start home. And the bus always fluctuates 5-10 minutes here and there. And he was waiting for that. So if you go back and look at it, they made a decision based on his actions.
Yeah.
And based on that, the behavior they said was this person doesn't care or something like that.
Yeah.
But they never took the next step and say, what are some of his belief systems and what are his assumptions?
Yeah.
When I spoke to him and I went and spoke to HR.
A simple conversation. I think that is so powerful to have those conversations and ask, why do you do what you do?
Exactly.
As it's relevant to that particular person and what's going on, because we get to have those coaching conversations. So we get to understand the assumptions they're making. And then many times we might be coaching multiple people in the organization.
Yes.
And we know that there are a lot of false assumptions being made. And you know what they say about assumptions, when we make them, we don't have to say it, but this is a family program. But when we make those assumptions, and we might, when we hear that there are assumptions being made, we might tell somebody else in the organization, hey, you might want to have a conversation with your team. Exactly. Because I think everything's all good, but we're making some assumptions. I think they want to be with you. They want to be behind you. But your behaviors, the behaviors you're seeing are leading you to think other things that aren't necessarily true. And it's so important. If there's one thing, and maybe, if you have 10 people, you do have conversations with everybody. It's like, it's a family, it's a small company, but you start growing and you say, well, I can't have conversations with everybody now. So I just can't have conversations with anybody. And I don't like that mindset.
You can't do that. You can't
yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Yes.
I heard a great leader say, "Do for the one what you wish you could do for the many," and
Very true.
that's it,
Very
right?
true.
You just say, you know what? I can't have this conversation. I can't take everybody to lunch, but I do have time today to take this person to lunch.
And
I'm going to do it.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
That is exactly what we need to do.
That's so good.
So here, basically, one of the question I always go back and tell as an entrepreneur, right? To answer your question, I want to summarize a couple of things for you.
Okay.
So as an entrepreneur, one thing is change is the only constant that will be there with you because of the environment, because of the business, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And your own business, new products, new services, your growth, everything else. So at least based on the research, based on everything I have seen from all the successful people who have grown their business anywhere from 1 million to 20 million, 40 million, 100 million. The highest person was 1.4 billion.
Wow.
So I have range of information from all of these successful people whom I have worked over the last 15 years. There are 5 points I really want to bring to that.
Okay.
The first piece of it always is continuously learn, unlearn, and relearn.
That's good.
So that is a big point of it. And a lot of people don't understand. So an example from an entrepreneur perspective, when they start the business, the first thing they need to focus on is really driving sales. As a stage 1 company with until 10 employees, 80% of your focus is bringing money and revenue because it is survival. Second stage, 10 to 20 employees, still that is there. But when you go to third stage, you have salespeople, you have 34 employees, 35 employees. I don't need to personally sell. I'm selling through 4 people or 2 people or 1 person, whatever it is, but you delegate that. And that is the change piece of it. So I learned to sell. And as my team was growing, I'm unlearning and then relearning how to manage my salespeople.
Yeah.
3 different skills.
Yeah.
Every entrepreneur need to look at it from that perspective.
Well, and on a deeper level, it's not just the skill, but our identity gets wrapped up in that skill set, in what we bring to the table. This is the value I bring. And when that changes, there's some hesitancy in making that change because we go, well, no, this is what I do. This is how I know I'm successful. And I want to stay in that place, the comfort zone.
Exactly. No, that is always there. And the second point comes is basically you always value yesterday. Everybody as human being, they love to talk about our past successes.
Yeah.
But focus on living today because past is done.
Yeah.
Like in the baseball analogy, right? You're basically a grand slam yesterday has nothing to do with today's result.
Yeah.
It is done. You're gone. You need to hit a grand slam today if you really want to win.
Exactly.
And that is what everybody needs to think.
Yeah.
As human beings, we are always tend to go back and look at all the great things we had done in the past, and we try to live in yesterday. That is something we need to change. As an entrepreneur, when I grew a business from, let us say, 0 to 2 million, I'm very excited. But that doesn't help you to go from 2 million to 3 million.
Yeah.
That is great. We learn from the good. We learn from the bad. If something happened, not to do things. All the lessons learned, good and bad, has to be taken, but still be looking at it and changing. So always look at it from today's window, today's lens, today's point of view, today's customers. That is the second point I tell people always to focus on. And the third one piece of it is everybody like to do speed, especially entrepreneurs. They have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
That's why they're in there. They always think of speed. What I tell is speed is important. I'm not going to go back and say it's not important, but timing is much more important.
Yeah.
And that is what I want each one of you to think about is as an entrepreneur, you can go back and bring a lot of different things. But if the team is not, like we're talking about change, right?
Yeah.
If the team is not ready for change, I can bring one of the best solutions and it will fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
So make sure the team is ready. The 12%, 13% of the population is ready. They're trained, answer the questions and stuff. And that timing is very.
Yeah. And I'm excited because we are going to talk more about that actually in another episode of the podcast. And it's so powerful. And I even think, there's some ways that we can prepare our team for the timing, right? And prepare them to be primed, salt the oats, so to speak, right? You can lead a horse can't lead a horse to water, but you can lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink, but you can salt the oats. There you go. I got the saying out. All right. Keep going. I'll be quiet over here.
And the fourth one is, it doesn't matter what is happening. You need to move directionally. You need to move courageously.
Yeah.
Because the whole team is dependent on you. As you, the entrepreneur, the business owner, whatever title it is, you need to constantly, you cannot stand. You need to constantly keep moving courageously.
Yeah.
I mean, basically a lot of people during pandemic, right? Over 35% of the businesses went bankrupt.
I didn't know that.
One of my own client went bankrupt. 400 plus people were without jobs.
Wow.
And we this thing. So that is one of the things, because the
Yeah.
board for that organization really did not act. We had the discussions almost 24 hours, 24 months before. I was part of a couple of the discussions.
Wow.
But it didn't work. So I said, you know what? Eventually this is going to come and bite us. And it happened during the pandemic. But if you look at some of the other people who went back and changed,
Yeah.
they grew their business tremendously. So I have one client, basically, he's a very decent, profitable company. And then they had the PPP money and everything, right? So since the money was available, he took the loan. He said, you know what? I'll see if I can't use it, then I'll return it. And then we were brainstorming and he said, there's so much of beautiful talent. So we looked at the 5-year people and we identified 6 positions that if we hire right now and get the right people, it will accelerate the growth. So directionally, everybody was shutting down. We went back and interviewed and brought 5 new people into the organization with some high-powered salaries.
Yeah.
And that was basically way back in 21. And guess what? 35 to 38% year-over-year growth this year.
That was a good strategic bet right there.
Exactly. So directionally, everybody was worried. So
Yeah.
we looked at it. It was not this thing because we had profitability, we had the money and stuff. We were saying we'll take the risk.
Yeah.
So things favored very well. So that is
That's
what
good.
it is. A lot of people took the PPP money. I don't know what they did, but people who are smart enough, they really capitalized on that.
Yeah.
Like this company. So they're just gone. They were expecting that they would have 15 to 18% growth, but they're close to 35.
Doubled it.
30,
Yeah.
Doubled it.
That's great.
And that is the 4th piece of it. Basically, move forward courageously, irrespective of the uncertainty.
Yeah.
And last but not least, I always tell people is realize today's best will not meet tomorrow's challenges. Today, we have done the best. We have everything else, but that is not enough. Think of point number 1 again, unlearn and relearn. So that
But Raj, I'm a business owner. I'm tired. I've been working hard. Why can't I just relax a little bit and slow down?
And you can relax and slow down. If you have the right team next to you, then you can be playing golf 3 days and work only 2 days.
Okay.
I have a CEO who's doing that.
Okay.
He's less than 40 years old. And he built a good team. He built the business and everything.
So you're
else.
saying that your principles and kind of what you share can help people get there.
See, basically, you need to go back and understand what you want to do. So he was very clear. Raj, I really want to be strategic.
Yeah.
I really want to think of mergers, acquisitions, and growth.
Yeah.
And he spends no more than 20 hours in the office. But he has created a solid team around him. And the team manages, and he manages those people with 2 days of work.
Got it.
So you can go back and see, again,
There
each one of the entrepreneurs can design what they want to do.
Yeah.
And that is the whole piece of change is that. But my challenge, and I know, knowing the entrepreneurs I know, they don't want to let go of that. Yeah. That's the reason why they are stuck.
Yeah. They're holding on to it. That's funny. That's good.
Exactly.
That's so good, Raj. Well, we've just blown through this episode on change or die. Is there anything you want to say before we sign off today?
Again, to summarize, change is the only constant. Either you go with the flow, adapt, and be successful, or if you don't want to go back and change, that is the ultimate for your business.
Yeah.
That is something I have seen so many times over the last 32 years.
There you go. There you have it. All right. We're going to dig into some of those principles that Raj was selling at the end. We're going to dig into those in the next episode. So make sure you are subscribed to our channel, to our podcast, and that you are getting notified when we have our next episode out. We look forward to adding more value to you and your organization. Thanks so much.
Thank you.